Okay, so that's how it's all starting to come together now. The wheel arches are actually plastic, so they're flexible, they can be pulled in and basically into shape, and hopefully they will look okay, and hopefully they'll be able to take some paint on them. That's something I was concerned about, trying to get paint to key on it. I'll have to use a proper plastic primer. The seat is just sort of rigged in position, and the tank is the BSA Bantam tank, so you know it's getting along the lines of how I want it to eventually look. So yeah, it's getting there. So the steering components gone together okay. Obviously that bolt needs cutting down in length a bit. Also I need to make sure that when this is fixed down that it all doesn't foul up with the tank, but it won't. It's just this rope here which is lashing the tank is just pulling it high. The tank will actually drop down considerably more, and it'll clear all of that mess. The suspension spring here at the front seems to be working just about right. All seems to be going to plan. Yeah, so not bad. Next part is I'm going to saw these forks off the front and start to finish the front suspension unit off. I've also had these hubs turn up for the front. So they will now dictate how wide the front forks are going to be rigged. So you see how it's all going to work out. So now I've got these hubs, I can order some spokes and get the front wheel spoked up and a front disc fixed on. Yeah, all working out well. Right, so once it's sort of welded up, that's what we're left with. It seems to work out quite well. I've tapped the pipe along at the bottom there, I've recessed it slightly, really you can see up inside there, and then I've put 3 relatively large welds around, so you can see it's welded up quite well. Need to do a little bit more welding around here, maybe put a piece of steel bar band around here and weld that on to thicken up the bottom there to make it look a bit more durable and more like the original. Yeah, but you know, it does what it needs to do. Yeah, once all this is tightened up properly and locked with some spanners, a couple of 13mm spanners on here, and that'll be doing the job pretty damn good. So the frames come together fairly well. When it sits, it'll sit back a little bit more on an angle like that. Yeah, so I've got a piece of rod through the bottom for foot pegs to go on. The seat's sort of in a position. The steering's sort of coming together. Leave that there. And then what I've done is I've started to make the girder forks for the front, and that's how they're turning out. down there. So if I pick these up together, you can see I've got flat plates welded on down at the bottom for the base, for the front hub to be mounted onto, and a plate sticking out the side where the disc caliper will be mounted on the side. I think I'm going to have to do some mods on that though, but that's coming together alright. And what I'm doing right at this moment is I'm doing some little mods to the hub for the front. This is a hub which I got from China, and I think it's 135 millimeters on the dropouts, and it's 36 holes. They're hard to find on the web. I don't think I could find them on eBay. I think I had to buy them from AliExpress or Temu, one of them. Now at the moment I'm drilling the holes out slightly to put these thicker push moped spokes on. So I'm drilling them out, I think, let's see, to 3.2 millimeters is the drill bit which is removed from that kit. So 3.2 gets them drilled, gets them fitted I should say, and you can just use a simple hand drill for doing this. It doesn't take a lot of effort. I should be using two hands as I normally do, but you can see it doesn't take much work to do this. I've got it mounted in one of my welding gloves so I don't take the finish off the hub, and basically I'm just going to run around, but I'm not going to do it single-handed. I'm going to use two hands while I'm drilling this so I don't snap my drill bit. Okay. Right, now what I'm doing is I'm making the top shaft which goes in the top of the forks. Now because the dropout on the front hub is 135, I've then got to allow for the thickness of the metal which are welded on the inside of the two girder forks, and I've calculated that basically I need to have a shaft in the center which is 140 millimeters in width. Then we need 40 millimeters of threaded section turned down to 10 millimeters at each side of the 140 millimeter section. So that's what I'm doing now. I've turned down one end and I've not cut this off the main piece of stainless steel bar that I'm using, because if I mess this up I'll cut it off and then turn the next piece of shaft down and then thread it again. But at the moment it looks like I'm actually tapping this fairly okay. I'm just putting, I think it's M10 by 1.5 teeth per 1.5 teeth per, no, not teeth per inch, 1.5 metric, like that's M5 times 0.8. I think these are M10 by 1.5, but they might be by 1. Hang on, let's just unscrew it rather than me waffling on. Yeah, M10 by 1.5, I was right. Anyway, I'm going to get on with that. I need to tap that down probably about 13 millimeters, half an inch, but it doesn't need to be threaded all the way because that part there is just going to be sitting in the metal of the girder forks, so it doesn't need a thread. Only the part where the nut's going to be on the outside that needs the thread on it. Okay. Right, so what I did was, when I had finished working on this last night, I took my wheel in and I've spoked it up with these push spokes, push moped spokes. They're down on eBay as 17-inch. Now they just happen to fit an 18-inch rim with a Chinese, I think that is about 60 millimeters, or at least the holes, you know, the spacings on the you call it a PCD if it was a car wheel, pitch circle diameter, but basically the central point where they you know, that runs through the holes is 60 millimeters. I think it's either 60 millimeters there or 60 millimeters on the outer edge, but basically if you order one, you're going to have to set it up to whatever it is. Now the thread doesn't come all the way through. These spokes are actually 90 or 92 millimeters, no, 90 millimeters in length, these spokes, and they come with spoke nipples which are 8 millimeters in diameter at the head, and they do not pass through the motorcycle rims, and they are flush. I would say that if the spokes had been 95 millimeter length, then they would probably be better, but there is about 3 turns of thread left on the spokes there visible. I'm hoping, I forgot to measure these, but I'm hoping that means there's a good few 5 millimeters or so of thread up into the actual spoke nipple, so I'm hoping that they're not going to drop out. Also, these things have got a little bit more tension in them. You can see some of these here, the at the J end, they're not hard up against the actual hub. So I'm going to have to look into this and see if it's going to be an issue or not. I certainly didn't want to try rebending the things. Basically, if you push these in with some pliers and then you tension it, then you can get these things to tighten up a little bit more. Obviously, you've then got to adjust the how true the rim is. Now, I've just had a bit of a play around with this one last night. I've not done anything serious, you know, it does need trimming up. I just did a bit of a play around with it, just so that I could get the thing assembled and see that it was going to work out for me. And it appears to be okay. So that is coming together quite well. If we lift this up at this end, we have our top mounting for the girder forks. Now this is essentially a piece of tubing with a 14 millimeters inside diameter and a 16 millimeter outside diameter, and that spins quite nicely on there. It's going to have a grease nipple mounted in the center so that it can be greased up, and I'm going to weld 2 arms coming out from this. Now the originals used a flat piece of flat bar, but probably about 1/4 inch thick flat bar. Now I'm going to do something slightly different. My plan is I'm going to get some say 3mm wall 1-inch box section, maybe slightly lighter than that, and I'm going to cut down the length of the box section. And well, hang on, let me just get some. Yeah, so I'm going to get some of this box section. It's probably slightly thinner, it's probably about 2mm wall on this, and the plan is I'm going to cut along the length of it all the way through both sides. Then I'm going to make some U-section steel, and I'm going to drill a hole through the end, and I'm going to put the U-section steel over that, and I'm going to construct my arms. And at the other end of the U-section steel, the links are only going to be about 4 inches long, so I'm going to have a hole there which goes over this, and then it's going to be welded onto that in the right position. The other end is going to have an 8mm hole, so that an 8mm bolt can fit through in this position here. Yeah. So it's going to have a piece of studding essentially with a nut on each end. It'd probably be a nylock or a wire locked nut of some form, or split pinned nut, a castle nut. So that's all going to work out okay. Then it's going to have a second pair of arms down here, which will be the same sort of length, made to the same sort of pattern, with another swivel down here. Now that's going to be connected to another swivel point down here on the frame. Now I could weld some flat plates like this here down here, and that will work, and that may be exactly what I end up doing. Two more pieces of steel down in here, yeah, and then all my swivel points can be connected between those. Right, now by the time it's got 3 points which are connecting across, including the actual wheel shaft down there, these forks are going to be pretty solid, and they're not going to twist, I would say, by the time it's got another point like this running across. So this is essentially a piece of 14mm bar outside diameter, and I've turned it down and I've put M10 nuts on these two ends. Now these might have to be replaced with covered nuts so that they don't snag. I'm going to have to look into this, either that or they might have to have a plastic cap pushed on over them, stuck on with a little bit of glue or something so they don't pop off. So I'm going to have to think on this. They might have to be changed out for nylocks. These are self-gripping nuts which I've put on there. Okay, right, I'm just going to press on. Right, so that's how it starts to look once I've put these components together. So I've drilled a 16mm hole in the ends of these link bars. So that is essentially going to be put to the right sort of alignment. Then I'm going to put some tack welds on when I'm sure that everything is sitting how it should be. I will leave those tack welds on until the rest of the assembly is done, in case I've got to grind them off and adjust something, because it could easily be that something is out of alignment when I'm creating this. So it's got to have temporary tacks done, and then put all the parts together. So you can see this sort of thing will start falling over, but it shall rise and fall sort of in like a parallelogram, the way the suspension works. yeah, just got to work out the rest of the points where it's all got to be supported and put the second linkage in. Okay, right, so that's how it's looking with the suspension sort of coming together and the front wheel on it. I still haven't anchored this front spring down yet, but I think that's approximately where I want it to sit. There's going to be a slight bit of adjustment in this anyway, due to being able to alter the adjustment on the spring, both on the travel and the tension on the spring, so that shouldn't be an issue. I've got a temporary piece of bar running through that point there at the moment, so that is not sorted out yet. Now the other point I've got to sort out is whether I need to or want to reduce the distance on here and close this these ties, arms up on the suspension, whether I want to bring them closer in or leave them wide. Part of me says reduce them somewhat, maybe by ½ an inch, bring them in by ½ an inch, basically saw them shorter, and that will bring these in slightly closer to the center. It will look a little bit more like the original components on here. I basically just left these longer than they needed to be, simply because I could do it that way and then shorten them later. Yeah, so that, as I say, this is stuck on an angle at the moment, and the bike is only propped up on some bricks, so if I mess around with this it'll fall over. Yeah, so it's certainly getting there. Obviously once I put a tyre on there, it's going to elevate the front more by another 3 inches, nearly 2.5 inches I would say. Okay, so we've got the bike there in green and we've got mine there. Now first of all, the first thing I notice is the base of the frame looks like it's on a different angle to how it's presented there on that bike. Now this is in part due to the way the engine mounts on the original. The engine is mounted there and there. Now what I have done is I have taken a piece of steel from the base of where the engine will mount on the front down pillow, whatever, and then I've welded it across to the lowest point on the support post here, where that comes down to the foot pegs and so on. So I've only just taken it down a little bit, so it's slightly lower, but not by much. So what I'm contemplating anyway is I'm going to disguise the side of here with some other components. So I'm going to cover that pipe up, and then I'm going to build a fabricated dummy engine over the top of the battery box coming upwards. It's not going to look as good as if the battery was just hidden in the fuel tank, but due to the way or the size of the battery, it's not going to fit into the fuel tank very easily. Certainly not with the crossbar still running through the tank, and I don't want to remove the crossbar because the crossbar is adding rigidity to the frame. I don't want to mess around with that. This is the reason why I've put the bar in down here at the bottom, is to put rigidity back in. If I'm not having a solid engine mounted in there and just a battery box, then I need to have some strength. So I've put the 1-inch box in. Yeah, now when I compare this frame against the original frame, it is the same. The only thing I've cheated on a little bit is the angle on this angle bar here. I've brought it slightly further forward, but not by very much. I just changed the angle from, say, here to here. So that's not a big alteration. Yeah, the seat will have to be adjusted in once the tyres on and all the suspensions set to the correct points. Now, what I'm thinking about doing here at the front to support this is, what? You got something to say? You got some input here? All these animals. Oh, what? Don't go pushing it. Don't push it. Okay? Now, I'm thinking about bolting a piece of box section. Ooh. A piece of box section across here, 1-inch box section, with a pivot point welded on the top of it to support the base of this. You know, what is it with you animals? You know, I've got other things to do. I'm not here just for you. You three. Anyway, so I'm now crapping in the video. Right, get off. Now, so I'm put a box section across here, but it's going to be a bolt-in one. So I'm going to put a flange downwards here, an L shape like that, and an L shape above, with a hole going through, and the box section is going to be a piece that bolts in. And the reason I'm not welding it in is because the two sides of the girder forks need to be able to come apart. So anything I fit in here has to also be able to come apart. So it's going to have a piece of box. I could use round bar, but box will fit in between some flanges easier. It'll be more rigid, easier to bolt in. So that's what it's going to be, and that will then be a point which rises and falls with the forks and compresses the spring. So I'm just going to get on with this, okay?